Hey YouTube, welcome back to my financial focus. In this video, I'm going to be doing an intrinsic value analysis of Novo Nordisk, which is a global healthcare company out of Denmark that engages in diabetes and obesity care. I'm going to look into their annual report to get a better idea of their financial health, and then I'm also going to be doing a discounted cash flows analysis using this discounted cash flows model that I built in Excel to help us get a better understanding of what a good buying price would be for us from a value investing perspective to buy into Novo Nordisk's stock. So right here we can see this is their global website, and if I scroll down here we can see these are the two guys that basically discovered insulin. I believe this man on the right is Frederick Banting, and then this man on the left is Charles Best, and they discovered insulin in 1921, so it's been pretty much exactly 100 years since the discovery of insulin came about. And it's a pretty revolutionary discovery because before then, I think the fact is that it was considered to be pretty exceptional for someone with type 1 diabetes to live for more than 1 to 2 years. So discovering insulin was a pretty big scientific breakthrough 100 years ago. And then right here we can see this is their United States website, which is basically the same thing, but just more so geared towards United States programs like Medicare and Medicaid and different things like that. And now I'm going to go into their annual report to get a better understanding of their business. First page I'm going to go to is page 7. And right here we can see a couple of fun facts about Novo. Right here we see that 463 million people live with diabetes worldwide and 650 million people live with obesity, with 450,000 people living with hemophilia, which is essentially a rare condition that prevents someone's blood from clotting, which could lead to them having excessive bleeding internally and externally from injuries and things like that. And so Novo basically just researches these different conditions and diseases to try to figure out and engineer different solutions to provide for people who have these conditions. And so we can see this is their business model. They essentially start by just researching, then they engineer it, they mass produce it, they distribute it worldwide, and then get it into the hands of their customers as quickly as possible. And then right here on page 9, we can see a couple of facts and highlights that Novo Nordisk accomplished in 2020. One of the things they accomplished was that they lowered the price ceiling of insulin in 76 countries. Their diabetes treatment sales increased by 8%, increasing their global market share to 29.3%. And then their overall sales increased by 7%, and they returned about 37 billion kroner to shareholders. Kroner is basically just the Danish currency, and just for reference, 1 Danish krone is equal to about 15 cents in the United States on the foreign exchange market. Next page I want to look at is page 10. Let me zoom in here so we can get a better look at it. Right here we can see their sales by geographic area, and about 50% of their total sales worldwide come from North America. So selling to the United States and Canada is definitely one of their biggest customers. And then sales by therapeutic area, we can see it's even more skewed towards one area of their business, with diabetics care taking up about 80% of their total sales. So that could be a positive or a negative depending on the perspective. A positive in that they obviously have the largest market share of any insulin company, so that makes a barrier to entry quite high, giving them a strong competitive advantage from an investing perspective. And also it could be a disadvantage because their revenues are obviously not as diversified as they could be. Right here for their financials, we can see just a quick look at their net sales, which have been increasing year over year from 111 billion kroner in 2016 to 126 billion kroner in 2020. And then their net profits have increased by 8% from 2019, from 38 billion kroner to 42 billion kroner. We can see that their gross margin over the years has maintained at about 83 to 84%, and then their net profit margin has also remained at around the low 30 to 33, 34% profit margin. Next page I want to quickly look at is page 36. And we can see right here that the geographical split of their shareholders shows that most of their shareholders come from Denmark, which is the country that they're located in. And then the next largest region by shareholder equity is North America. So Novo doesn't have much American investment relative to European investment. And then the next page I want to look at is page 47. We can see right here, this is their income statement. And I quickly touched on this a little bit before, but I'll just go into more detail right here. We can see that the majority of their costs that go into their operations is just sales and distribution costs. So just getting their insulin products into the hands of different healthcare providers and customers worldwide. And then their net profit for 2020 came out to be about 42 billion kroner over their total revenue of 126 billion kroner. This is their cash flow statement, and we can see that their net cash provided by operating activities increased to 51 billion kroner in 2020, up from 46 billion in 2019. And we can see that from their investing activities that the majority of their investing takes place in the purchase of intangible assets as well as the purchase of property, plant, and equipment. And then for their financing activities, most of the money that they use in their financing activities just gets paid in dividends back to their shareholders, which they've maintained at about 20 billion kroner year over year. But it has steadily been increasing from 2018 to 2020, which is a good sign for people who want to invest in Novo Nordisk. Right here on their balance sheet, we can see their total assets are about $144 billion as of the end of 2020. And most of that just comes from property, plant, and equipment that they use for research and development. Total equity is about 63 billion kroner, with most of that being retained earnings. And then their total liabilities come out to be about 81 billion kroner at the end of 2020. Next page that I want to look at is page 85. This is the second to last page I'm going to look at, and this was just an interesting chart that I saw, which is just how many animals they purchased for their research and their scientific studies. And most of it was just mice, rats, and rodents. I thought that was an interesting chart that they decided to include in their annual report. And the last page that I want to look at before we do the discounted cash flows analysis is page 96. This just gives us a little bit of a breakdown of their sales by business segment and by geographic segment. We can see that most of their sales come from their diabetes and obesity care. 100 billion 700 million kroner of their 100 billion 900 million total sales comes from diabetes and obesity care, so it's very heavily skewed in that segment of their business. And then for their sales by geographic segment, of their total 100 billion kroner in sales, 52 billion of that came from North America, and then 25 billion of that came from EMEA, with 12 billion coming from China. So now what I want to do is do a discounted cash flows analysis of Novo Nordisk, so we could get a good look at what a good buying price would be for us from a value investing perspective. And the growth rate for years 1 through 5 that I found for Novo Nordisk, I got from Yahoo Finance. You can see right here that from the analysis tab for Novo in Yahoo Finance, that their growth rates that analysts have projected for the next 5 years come out to be 1.83%. And for the growth rate for years 6 through 10, I'm just going to assume that it'll stay consistent from years 1 through 5 for this example. The year 1 free cash flow I got from just looking at their annual report on page 10. And we can see right here, the free cash flow came out to be for 2020 about 28 billion kroner. And I just converted that to USD using the current foreign exchange rate for Danish kroner to USD. And this shows that 28 billion kroner is basically equal to 4.3 billion US dollars. And then for net cash minus net debt, I got that from Yahoo Finance again by just going to their statistics tab, scrolling down, and then we see that They have about $35 billion of total cash and $13 billion of total debt. And so when I subtract that, it comes out to be about 21.64 billion. Stock ticker is NVO, and then the shares outstanding, I also got that from right here, 2.28 billion shares. And so after we plug all of this in, we see that their projected free cash flow for years 1 through 10 is right here. And then when we discount these values back by a discount rate of 10%, we get the present value of these cash flows today. And then the terminal value is essentially just a theoretical example of what we would sell the business for in year 10 if we own the entire business, and we would just sell it for 10 times free cash flow. When we add all of those values up in the present value column, we get the present value of future cash flows in billions, which comes out to $48 billion, plus the cash that's already on the business when we're starting our analysis, which is $21 billion. That comes out to $70 billion for the intrinsic value of the entire business. And then once we divide that by the number of shares, which is 2.28 billion, we get the intrinsic value per share of $30 per share. And relative to the current share price that's trading on the market for Novo Nordisk, we can see that puts Novo at a bit of an overvaluation, a bit of a pretty heavy overvaluation at $108 per share. But as I've said in previous videos, the intrinsic value calculator discounted cash flows model, it's not a perfect model, but it's just a model that we can use to reference whenever we're trying to figure out what a good buying price would be. I mean, compared to other businesses that we've looked at, Novo obviously has much lower growth rates than some of the technology businesses we've looked at, but I think it does make sense to value Novo Nordisk at about $30 per share, considering that the free cash flow comes out to be about $4 billion, and their total market capitalization at the moment is about $250 billion. So that means that Novo is currently trading at about 62 times free cash flow, which is pretty substantial. And they're also trading at about 30 to 40 times earnings. But I'd love to know what you guys think about Novo, if you guys think that it's a good value investment at the current trading market price. If this video provided any value for you guys, be sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, leave a comment letting me know what you guys thought of the video, and I'll see everybody in the next one.